Hey everyone, welcome to my very first video. I've chosen the topic of phishing and vishing. The reason for this is because it's something that actually hits very close to home. It's very common, and I think a lot of people could benefit from just a really basic walkthrough of what phishing and vishing is, how to spot it, and just have more information on essentially awareness about phishing and vishing. So my goal of this is that anyone watching this can take away some very basic skills and have looked at some of the examples that I show here and hopefully not fall victim to these. About me. So I am an information security professional, an adjunct instructor, and tech enthusiast. I have about 10 years of experience in information technology in lots of varying roles in different industries. I have an associate's degree in networking or network administration and a bachelor's degree in information technology with quite a few other certifications and just specialized training. So if you're interested in learning more about me or want to see more about my site, I have the link here. It's just caffeinetech.info. Before we dive into phishing and vishing, I do want to talk about data and try to get everyone here to visualize how much of it exists and why it's important. So, this is where I'm going to nerd out for a minute or two and just talk about the insane amount of data our digital world creates. So, let's think about everything in our lives that is now digital. Most of us have a smartphone, and those are constantly connected to the internet. A lot of us have tablets, we have smart TVs, we have computers. There are now smart appliances. So think of like refrigerators or laundry machines, front doors, garage doors. And even a lot of cars now are essentially just mini computers driving around on the road, right? They can self drive or they have the capability to constantly analyze everything around them and give you notifications about slowing down or braking or just overall helping you stay safer as a driver. So there is so much information being generated on a daily basis, and a lot of this is just driven because most of our world is now digital, whether we like it or not. So to put this in perspective, I'm going to use a picture as kind of an example. So I have a fairly new phone. If I take a photo with my camera, I've seen that most of the pictures I take are somewhere around 8 megabytes, and that varies, right? I'm just trying to speak generically here and use it as an example. So I'm going to use 8 megabytes of size. So 8 megabytes is one photo, right? If we take 1,000 megabytes, that is equal to 1 gigabyte. And 1 gigabyte could store about 125 of our photos. If we take then 1,000 gigabytes, that equals roughly a terabyte, which is 125,000 of our photos. And the average computer nowadays, like if you walked into a computer store like a Best Buy or Micro Center or whatever you have, and you bought a new laptop or desktop, most of them will have roughly a 1 terabyte hard drive, if not more, sometimes a little less. But we're just using that as an average. And so that's what an average computer has. 1,000 terabytes equals roughly a petabyte. So now we're getting way bigger. 1,000 petabytes equals an exabyte. And so 2.5 exabytes of data is the amount of data we generate every day. So now how do we even picture that? Well, there's a lot of ways we could do it. I'll just use one example. And so let's say we stored all of the data we generated in simply one day on hard drives. We would need 2.5 million 1 terabyte hard drives. And these hard drives on the right, this is like a standard size hard drive that might be in like a desktop computer. So this is a 1 terabyte Western Digital drive. And then if we took all of these hard drives and laid them on the ground in line, this line would be over 100 miles long. And so that's just a crazy amount of data to think about that's being generated every day. Now, obviously, not all this data is being saved. If you think of it in real terms, it's probably like some of it is transactional, or it gets deleted right away. And so obviously we don't need this many hard drives every single day, but the idea of how much data is being generated every day is still very true. So what's my point about this, and how does this have anything to do with phishing or vishing? Well, I think the reason I really bring this up is to just try to wrap our minds around how much data exists. So every person, right, who has a smartphone, tablet, computer, bank account, really almost any sort of connection to the modern world, unless you live in a cabin in the woods and you have literally never stepped foot into a major city or town, you probably have a digital footprint, unfortunately. And this data is incredibly valuable. And a lot of people would say that data is the most valuable resource of our modern day, more valuable than oil and even gold. And I think that's actually a very interesting thing to think about, because if you do look at some of the largest, most successful companies right now, you would probably know why. So think of Google, Amazon, Facebook. All of those companies are very data driven, data centric companies. And you can actually look at this link if you're really bored and want to just poke around the Fortune 500 list. Look at how many of the companies on this list are technology. It's a lot. And so, what I'm drilling in here is that data is really, really important. And so, we need to just understand why it's important, right? And every one of us has personal data, and personal data that we would maybe feel okay sharing, and personal data that we wouldn't want to share. And so, if someone else gets access to this data, like let's say a scammer, hacker, bad actor, whatever you want to call them, it's usually always for financial gain. And this could be in a lot of different forms. So maybe they get a hold of like a credit card number directly, and then they use that to go and try to buy items. Or maybe they get a hold of a password, and then they use that password to try to log into other known social media accounts or bank accounts or anything they can get a hold of that they know you have. And if you're someone who uses the same password for many of these same account or these different accounts, that's a very that's a big possibility. They could also maybe get a social security number that could be used to open new bank accounts or lines of credit with almost without you even knowing, right? Or you might not find out until that line of credit is opened, or something along those lines. So this is just kind of what I'm talking about here. But one of the easiest ways to obtain data, and this is going to sound dumb, is to just ask for it, right? So how many times have you opened up your email and you've seen all sorts of emails from potentially fraudulent sources, right? A lot of us probably have. Some of us may have fallen victim. Some of us may not. Some of us may have not seen a whole lot of them yet. But it actually happens very, very often. Or how many times have you gotten a call on your phone from some unknown number telling you that they're the IRS, or telling you that they're Microsoft, or someone of importance in your life that says, "Hey, something's going on here. We need help." So we can help you. Why don't you tell us some information, and then we can, take care of this issue that's really bad. So let's explain phishing and vishing. So phishing, pronounced exactly like fishing, right? Is when a bad actor, scammer, hacker, whatever you really want to call this person, um, sends a fraudulent email claiming to be from a legitimate organization. And the most common purpose of this email is usually to gather information, and information that would be of use to them. So, passwords, social security numbers, credit card numbers, or really anything that they can get, usernames, anything that's going to help them get more information, or potentially information that's going to lead them to, money, financial gain, right? That's essentially what phishing is in a nutshell. And then you have vishing, which is basically phishing, but over the phone. And this is kind of something I just talked about. So, like IRS scams, Microsoft scams, Facebook scams, right? Oftentimes, these people are pretending to be from very legitimate organizations for products that you may use, right? Most people have a computer, and that computer is probably most likely going to be running either like Microsoft Windows or Mac OS, right? Two most common operating systems. Um, or maybe someone calls you pretending to be from Facebook. This is one I've actually seen quite a few times. Call you from Facebook support, tell you that your account is actually being attacked, or there's something, a security issue, and they need you to give them credentials and pay them money or something along those lines, right? So this is, in essence, what vishing and phishing is. It's almost always for financial gain. So victims, who are the victims here? Well, really anyone can be a victim, but by far and large, the most targeted individuals are actually elderly Americans. So if you see this link I put here, the FBI actually says that the elderly population loses more than $3 billion annually to fraud, which is an incredible amount of money. So they are by far and large the largest target, but they are not the only target. And once again, anyone can fall victim to these scams. So what do these look like? Well, I actually have some examples here. I have quite a few examples. I'm going to walk through each one of them and tell you why I know they're a scam and how I can kind of figure that out pretty quickly. And it's one thing to note too that be very, very careful with these if you do receive them. Never click on links. Never download documents. Open anything that comes from them. Right. Um, do not do that. That is one of the things that is recommended against. And so I'm just going to show you these examples to kind of show you what to spot and how to know these really are scams. So this one I know personally is a scam because I use Netflix, but I don't use it with this particular email account. Also, the very first thing I did was I actually just checked to see who the sender actually was. And as you can see, it's this crazy long email from this very odd, obscure domain, that I really cannot figure out what it's from. But long story short is this is not Netflix, right? So look at this. It says no reply service customer number 09215-2164 at however you pronounce this .com. So this is for sure a scam. And this link right here, if I had actually clicked that, I'm sure it would bring me to some fraudulent page that would ask for information, or potentially this link itself could try to attempt to download some sort of malicious software on my computer or something along those lines. So just, don't click that. Next one. So this one's interesting because it has a document actually on it, as you can see. So it says, "Dear customer, for security reason, made on 11 April 2019, we limited your account." And then it has a report ID. Regards, PayPal team. Well, I actually got this in 2021, and it's from a very questionable domain, as you can see here. And the fact that it has a document attached to it that it wants me to download is all very suspect, obviously. So this is something you would not want to download, and this is most definitely phishing. All right, here is another one. Now this one I actually don't have the sender information from, and there's a reason for that. The sender of this was actually a domain name of a charter school somewhere on the East Coast. And what I think happened here was this school. I actually looked up this school, and it's a school. It's like an elementary level charter school. And unfortunately, I think what happened was this particular student, who was probably very young, right? Most likely, first through fifth grade, has an email address, a student email address that maybe they didn't keep safe, or they weren't maybe taught how to use it, and it got, unfortunately, for lack of a better term, hacked, right? So someone got a hold of their credentials and then actually started using their email account to send out these fraudulent emails. And so in this case, I didn't show the sender because it was a student from a charter school whose email account had been compromised. And so I actually reported it to that charter school. But this one is another example of just a bad email. So it looks pretty legitimate, right? I mean, Amazon.com, we have a shipping order number. We have, oh my gosh, I spent almost $6,000 on this. I didn't buy that, right? And so initially, what I think is trying to happen here is they're trying to get like a shock factor. They're trying to make you go, oh my gosh, I need to click on these links. I need to see this right away. I need to call this number. And so that's essentially what's happening here. Is most likely if you click on one of these or go to whatever site, it's going to bring you to some sort of malicious site where they'll get more information from you. Or if it had a number, right, it would be like a fake fraudulent number that you would call in and someone would pretend to be from Amazon. So this is obviously a scam. Next, this one's actually really interesting. I've really never gotten something quite like this before. This is really the first time I've ever gotten anything like this. And this one was very, very. This one I could see how this would really, really scare almost anyone because it seems so threatening at first, right? And obviously, this is very much a scam. I blurted some parts of this out because it does get really inappropriate. But essentially, the gist of it is they're trying to blackmail me, telling me that they know my password. And the reason I don't even blurt this out is because it's funny. This is the name of one of many, many dogs that I've had in my lifetime, and I've never used this as a password or anything even related to a security question. And so I'm not sure if they got this from some sort of social media account that I used to have where maybe a picture of my dog was in it or something like that. That would be my guess. But it's very threatening. And for a lot of people, right? So a lot of people do use passwords that maybe they have their dog's name or their spouse's name or something. So this could seem actually very terrifying for some people if they got this. And essentially, it's a threat, it's a blackmail, and it's saying, "Hey, I have your password. I have pictures of you or a video of you doing X Y Z, and if you don't send me money in the form of Bitcoin in the next XYZ time frame, I'm going to release these pictures, these videos, and your life's gonna be destroyed, right?" And obviously, for me, I knew this was a scam from the get go because I never use this as a password. This would be a terrible password, and also I don't. There's no pictures or videos like this that actually exist of me on the web. So this one is a good example though of just the extremes that some of these people will go through to try to get information from people. And so I could see how once again this could very very much scare a lot of people. All right, last one. Is this legitimate or not? Um, so this one actually is. I threw this one in as a bonus. And so how do we know this one's legitimate? Well, because of its sending address, right? Or where it's from. So Walgreens at re.walgreens.com. This is the main Walgreens domain name, right? And so this is one of their sending addresses, and so this is very legitimate, right? It has um, n- nothing like the other ones we've shown you where they're from totally random email addresses, totally random domains, right? This is a legitimate Walgreens message that came to me here. And it also, if I would have downloaded the images and things like that, right, it looks a lot more legitimate. If you call their number or you reply to this email, right, they will reply to you. So this is actually a legitimate email. All right, so I don't need to recreate the wheel here with how to protect ourselves from these attacks because the FBI actually has a really, really good list. And if you're interested in a good read, this is a fantastic read. Talking about elder fraud, common elder fraud schemes here. But it has a real easy list of how to protect yourself. So number one, like recognize scam attempts and end all communications with the perpetrator. So never reply to them. Once again, the IRS is never going to call you directly, and they say that a lot. They'll always send you letters. So if you ever get a number that calls you and they claim they're the IRS, you can safely hang up on them. But yeah, recognizing these attempts and with emails, right? So never reply, never try to cooperate, right? Just delete them. but if you do, right, in the case that you do want to try to confirm if an email is legit, you can do your research, right? Search online for contact information. If they have names, emails, phone numbers, addresses, right? It says other people have likely posted information online about these scams. Very true. A lot of people will have seen these scams already and will, kind of essentially tell others about their experiences. Resist the pressure to act quickly. This is huge. So as you can see, a lot of the emails that I just showed you really created this sense of urgency. Like the Amazon one where, it had a tracking number and it said I spent $6,000, right? If you're someone sitting there looking at that email thinking someone just bought $6,000 worth of stuff with your Amazon account, you're probably going to freak out. You're going to want to, you're going to want to get to the bottom of it as soon as possible. Or like that other threat email that I just showed you where they say, do this in 24 hours, right? They're trying to create the sense of urgency and really get your fear going so that they can hopefully rely on you to make quick, not wise decisions. Be cautious of unsolicited phone calls, mailings, and door-to-door services, right? So very common here. So going back to the phone call thing, don't answer phone calls from people pretending to be from legitimate organizations. For the most part, most legitimate organizations, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, like tech companies, or like I said, the IRS, they're not going to call you. And so I will show you a list of that in just a minute or so here. But very legitimate. Never give or send any personally identifiable information. Don't give any money, jewelry, gift cards, checks, nothing to people or businesses that are unverified. Make sure all computer antivirus and security software, malware protections up to date. Absolutely important as well. If you do think that your computer has a virus or is infected with some sort of malware, this is pretty good advice, right? Disconnect it from the internet, shut down your device, see if you can go get help from a professional. As it says here, enable pop-up blockers, things like that to help prevent. Be careful what you download. And I think I kind of touched on this earlier. Don't download or click on any links or do anything from an email that seems suspect, right? If it seems suspect, it probably is. It's better to be cautious in the digital world. And then lastly, take precautions to protect your identity. If a criminal gains access to your device or account, right, immediately contact your financial institutions to place protections on your accounts, monitor your accounts and personal information. So this is a big one, right? If your an account of yours, even if it's not like a bank account, right? So like even if, let's say one of your accounts gets breached, and somehow someone gets the credentials to it, gets access to it. Let's say a Facebook account. At that point, it's kind of best to treat all of your accounts as if they've been breached. So go and change passwords, right? Maybe lock accounts. Go and change authentication types, like enable multi-factor authentication. Things like that are going to be the best case to handle that kind of situation. And then lastly, there are ways you can report some of these crimes. So the FBI has kind of like a tip line. They call it IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, where you can report internet crime, and this is all very legitimate, and so you can essentially put in the information of the crime, right? Names of the scammer, dates of contact, methods of communication, things like this. So if something is malicious enough that you think it needs to be reported, right? You can report it here. I have done this a few times before, so that is an option. Lastly, this is probably going to be one of the more helpful slides here for a lot of people. This is by far and large the most common thing I have the most common type of attack, I should say, I've seen in my personal life. Like I said, I had some friends and family members that have fallen victim to these, and it's pretty much always one of these organizations that is essentially part of this scam, where someone is pretending to be one of these organizations and calling or emailing you, telling you that your account has been hacked or locked and you need to give them information, sometimes money, credit card numbers, and they will fix it for a certain price. That's pretty much all bogus, right? So these companies will never call you and ask you for your username, your passwords, anything like that. And I've actually put links from their official support sites for all the companies I could find that talk about these support scams. So Google has a link for that. Facebook has a link for that. Apple has a link for that. Microsoft. I think Amazon had a couple, but I couldn't quite find one that I liked. But the long story short of it is these companies will never call you via phone. If they do, you need to ask them to verify who they are by sending you an email and verifying themselves as an employee of this company. But once again, very, very rare. And they say it a lot on these articles that they will pretty much never call you. So if you get a call from someone claiming to be Microsoft saying your computer has a virus or something like that and that they can remove it for a certain amount of money, that is almost certainly, in pretty much every case, a scam. So just be very, very careful, and feel free to go to these links here and check these out. But once again, vast majority of companies will never call you. And that actually brings us to the end. I hope you found some of this information helpful and useful for your own um, daily life in navigating the digital world and hopefully staying a little bit safer. Thanks for watching.